is anyone else watching the news about the cost of living rising and starting to panic? But is anyone else simultaneously looking at all the things that they want for their home ed life and thinking, I'll just buy one more thing? Because I know it's not just me that thinks, well, if I just get that new book or those new art supplies or that new curriculum or that new app or even that new basket, and that's going to solve all of my home ed worries. And it's hard balancing being a cheapskate by necessity or by choice and still wanting to have a rich home ed life. So that's why I've decided to do these videos, to kind of give myself the challenge and hold me accountable to doing that, to have more for less. Now, bear with me on this metaphor, it will all make sense, but I want you to imagine that home ed is like a cream tea. I love a cream tea, don't get them very often. Now, if I do have a cream tea, then yes, squirty cream, it's fine, it'll do the job in a pinch, but it's not the good stuff. If you really want a rich and memory-filled cream tea, if you want it to be the stuff that holidays are made of, then it really has to be the clotted cream. The thicker, the better. And I want you to think about what we need to add to our home ed life that is like the clotted cream. And for me, it's skills. When we can add skills to the things that we're doing, when we can develop those in our kids, when we can observe those growing in them, that's the good stuff. Now, obviously, squirty cream is still good. It's still an amazing invention to press a button from a can and squirty cream to come out. Love it. And there are times when it works and it does the job. And it's the same for home ed. There are things that sometimes we're in a rush or our kids just want to get things done quickly, or there's just certain things where it's just a matter of ticking the box. We're not going to dive really, really deep into, at least for me, how we might form the letter F. It's just, it is what it is. Squirty cream lesson, that'll do. But when it comes down to skills, that's where we want the clotted cream. And that's what I'm trying to focus on a little bit more with my home ed. And what I found is that yes, I can do that in a cheapskate way. I can do it in a budget friendly way. So I'm trying to rethink a little bit more about skills. So I have printed off some stuff for myself. I'll show you these in a little bit more detail, but you don't need to print anything off. There are skills that you can just research and find out yourself, or there's some things where you just know the type of skills that you want to develop, but I'll show you what I'm looking at. So I'm down here in the basement of my house. I have a tall and thin house, and the basement isn't very usable. It's the way out to the backyard, and it also stores our scooters and things like that. It has stored a lot of our moving boxes, so that's why I decided to focus this week's video on kind of STEAM learning or STEM learning, the technology, the engineering, a bit of maths, a science, a bit of art, and that's where I want my kids to really push their skills. The reason why I chose that is because they're already leaning into that, and so I want to be a bit more intentional with it. So I looked at what we already did. We already do a bit of junk modelling. They love a cardboard box. We already have this space down here. Now, I know that's a big privilege. Prior to this, I was in a 2-bed flat. I know that there's not always space, but I've got an answer for that later. But yes, I took what we had. We have a scrap store near us, so I went and spent £2 there to get lots of random things. I didn't really buy anything new. And yes, I did print some stuff off, but I work for Twinkl. Of course, I'm going to do that, but I have chosen free resources. But I went through these objectives and I chose really the verbs in there, the choosing, the making, the doing, the inventing, the imagining, all of those things. And I just highlighted them and I've just stuck them up here, really just as a very tangible reminder to me when I step down in here that this is an intentional space to develop skills. Yes, sometimes it might be, I'm going to sit here with my cup of tea and have a breather while you get on with it. But for the most part, I want this to be a place where I really start to ask questions and give them space. You can't have that snack, I'm afraid. First, of course, I had to tidy up the mess that was there beforehand. We've been collecting bits and bobs for the last few weeks, random packaging, things from the scrap store. So we just kind of organised those into different zones, and then we decorated as well with some Twinkl resources because I want my kids to be a little bit inspired and to do some reading as well while they're down there. I found a really great pack with STEM challenges in, written for home educators. It's free, so I'll pop that below. But yeah, here's some of the stuff that we sorted out. I even had time to run up and down the stairs and get our art area set up too. Going up and down these stairs. And this is what I used to do when we just had the small flat. I kept a box in the kitchen that I just put random stuff in, and when we wanted an afternoon of STEM, I just stuck it in the middle of the tuff tray and off they went. So we do have a few other areas in our home that I've tried to adopt this kind of more for less attitude when it comes to STEM learning. We have an outside space. We've never had our own outdoor place, and we've got a little yard, and what I've created is not aesthetically pleasing. I'm sure some of our neighbours think we've just kind of dumped things and left them there and forgotten about them, but there is a reason for all the things that are out there. We've got like an inventing, plumbing, water area. We've got the mud kitchen. Sometimes we'll have a lot of nature things that we found out there that my kids will do experiments with. We've now got 5 tyres that I got for free. Everything that I got out there, I got for free or from the scrap store for a couple of pennies, or I ask people for. Shy Ben's getting out, as my nana says. So that's, I guess, a practical tip is ask for things, borrow things, keep an eye out for things and try and look at things in different ways and what they might be useful for. But the main practical tip I guess I have for doing this home ed thing for a few years now on a low income is that what you don't spend in money, you are going to spend in time, and think carefully what you're using that time for. I used to spend hours making every single thing for free and making it look a certain way as well. And I didn't necessarily think about what those activities would do in terms of, well, I spent this amount of time making something, but it's only going to be used for 10 minutes one week and then 10 minutes another week, and I had kind of things filed away that I'd made that weren't really getting used. So now I try to make sure that my time is spent in those open-ended, enriching activities. And I also recognise that things aren't going to look exactly how I want them to. Good enough is good enough sometimes, a lot of the time. And my kids don't really care how things look as long as they can get stuck in. And the sooner they can get stuck in, the better for them. And the other thing that I have to kind of plan in is that there's going to be some cleanup time, there's going to be some restocking, there's going to be a kind of maintenance cost of time as well, because it's not like I'm taking them to a club, they're getting all their STEM stuff done there, and then they're coming home and I've left all the mess behind. There's going to have to be maintenance of that, but that's the kind of investment that I've decided to put in this. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed seeing what I got up to. Look, I know this isn't rocket science. I know I'm probably teaching a granny to suck eggs. You've probably watched this video thinking, Rachel, are you really trying to convince us that cutting up cereal boxes is going to pay my energy bill? I get it. This isn't going to solve the cost of living crisis. But for me, what it does is it takes those things that I maybe had as add-ons to my home ed world and makes them more of a focus. Instead of them being the kind of squirty cream that I get out quickly, they're the clotted cream that's going to really hold all of my cream tea of home ed together. So it's going to help me have more space for this type of activity, in space in my brain and physical space. It's going to allow me to set time aside more intentionally for my children. It's going to guide my conversations with them. It's going to relieve some of that stress that I have about, well, have I taught them this? Have I taught them this? Because I can see before me their skills growing. So yes, this isn't kind of a plaster that you're sticking on a broken leg. I know it's not going to fix everything, but I'm hoping that it's something that is useful for us to think about. If it is, then please like this video, because then I know that it isn't. Tell me in the comments. I'm always willing to hear healthy criticism. So have at it, let me know, and I'll hopefully, fingers crossed, see you next time for another More for Less.